Neurocognitive fatigue is really the term you need to remember. When people talk about brain injury, they often talk about that overwhelming tsunami of exhaustion and fatigue. Lots of people sort of think, oh, well, I'm just tired. Oh, they're just tired. It's not tired. This is a very, very present feeling. It's because, as I describe to people, if you break your arm, you put your arm in a plaster of Paris, you don't use it for 6 weeks, not at all. And you're resting it, and the muscles are rested as well. And then the plaster comes off and you exercise that limb and you get back to normal function. The problem with the brain, you can't put it in a plaster of Paris, obvious. However, that brain still is working constantly for us, breathing, feeling, emotional responses, talking, interacting, and understanding the world around us. So you can't really switch it off. So when there's a damage to the brain, that brain has to cope with that damage by basically assisted through rehabilitation to reroute maybe the way in which people have been doing things to avoid that broken area, or that area that is maybe flooded by blood through hemorrhage or through encephalitis. What we have to do is reroute those brain pathways, and that neuroplasticity has to grow so that new skills are learnt and different ways of doing things are done. So that is why the brain switches off at a certain point, because it's so exhausted from all of the new learning. It's the brain's way of saying, hey, come on, let's have a rest now. We need to have a break. The problem is, specifically for those that have very high level brain injury, it's really difficult to switch off because they look completely normal in the sense of physically. They feel normal. They may get headaches, they may have other symptoms. However, most of the time they're feeling very normal and they go about their day and they don't have that insight to realise that actually what is really happening here is that I'm getting my memories going, I'm forgetting things, I'm not doing things like I used to, but they're ploughing on and not resting efficiently or effectively, and then we have all sorts of problems. So one of the things as an occupational therapist that I would be looking at is really breaking down somebody's day-to-day tasks and looking at how they manage and run their week and their routine. So what are the essential things that everybody has to do within their day? Most of us have to get up, most of us have to feed ourselves, drink lots of water, get some exercise. So that basic Maslow hierarchy, that basic physiological need needs to be built in as an essential across the day and across the week. What occupational therapy will do is look at that routine, look at those structures and see actually how much of that demand is on the emotional, is on the physical needs, and on the cognitive needs as well. Part of that routine, we'll be looking at what we call pacing and how you can balance in the day your exercise and your cognitive computer time, looking and scrolling at the phone, watching TV, going out and having communications, going to the pub, going to see your friends, having a work phone call. All of those things drain your battery, drain your energy. So when you've had that brain injury, what we're doing is going, okay, let's have a look at all of those elements that you do in your day and weight them in how much energy it takes away from you. And we often do personalised fatigue sort of scales for people, and we get them to write up their own bespoke personal scale, and then they can monitor themselves through the day when they're really going into a really bad place where their sleep is very deprived. When people are particularly drained and when people are really exhausted, often they don't realise how their behaviour is changing, and it's often the people that are around them that they live with or work with that start to detect where people aren't quite themselves. So often what we will find is that people will have emotional outbursts, crying for no reason, or unfortunately maybe snapping a bit too quickly, or in really bad situations, anger outbursts that can cause lots of problems for the family or for their work colleagues, obviously. So we have what we call a boom versus bust situation, where people, when they get energy, go for it. They think, God, I wake up, I haven't felt like this for ages. So they'll go and do the to-do list as quickly as possible and get through what they need to do, and then add on a few extra bits because they're feeling so great. This is a really difficult thing to manage because obviously when you're feeling good, you want to make the most of it. Unfortunately, the repercussion of that is it will then take maybe 2 or 3 days to recover, sometimes even longer, and that's where we call what we call really severe fatigue debt. One of the common things that happen as well with fatigue management is that people go back to work too quickly. As I've explained, they are physically very present and able and feel like they're back to their former selves. They get back into work and they might automatically be able to do some of the things that they were doing before. However, as that fatigue creeps in and that neurocognitive fatigue starts to drain that battery, so when you're at work, often it will be because of the performance of your work that gets picked up. And that's where you might end up having to have a few chats with your manager, or some of your colleagues might highlight things. And this is where we say that the awareness and insight isn't necessarily there. So it's really important that we as occupational therapists have that conversation often with employers, and we do graded returns to work. We discuss with HR departments and occupational health departments about how best to support those individuals that have suffered that brain injury.